What's going on, everyone? DSP here, and wow, do I have a story for you that I did not expect that I would be talking or reacting to anytime in this time frame. Let me tell you, if last night you were to tell me that we might have official news that the Wii U is about to be put out of production and retired, I would be like, I did not expect that. And it's not that there weren't signs that this console had lots of issues, which we're about to talk about, because there have been tons over the years, but the fact that Nintendo has wholeheartedly stayed behind this console and said, no, we are not going to back down, we're going to push ahead with the Wii U, and we're still going to make games for it, and now it seems like that might not be the case. So if you haven't heard the news, this morning, a Japanese business publication called Nikkei, it's much respected, much reputed, people trust what Nikkei says, came out and said that according to their sources, by the end of 2016, Nintendo will stop production of Wii U consoles, citing factors such as low game sales, low console sales, the failure to actually catch on within the gaming market. Wow. Now, just so you understand the perspective here of why this is such a big news story, okay? Nintendo, number one, used to be the big dog in game development. They had insanely popular consoles like the NES, the Super NES, or Famicom, Super Famicom, Nintendo 64, and yes, even to some extent the GameCube, and of course, their very popular Wii. This really is kind of foreign ground for Nintendo, so to speak, where they had a console that was so just not adopted by the widestream gaming audience. And to, again, give you some perspective, number two, the Wii U's only been out for 3.5 years. It was actually released on November 18th, 2012 in the United States. So obviously that's the date I know because that's where I live. 3.5 years into its life cycle, we're now announcing retirement. That's one of the fastest, if not the fastest retirement cycle for a mainstream console ever. Now, I know there might be some people who say, oh, but don't you remember the original Xbox? That only existed for around 4 years. That is true, but here's the difference. The original Xbox at launch jumped into the console war late in that console generation. Both the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube had beaten Microsoft in the launch of that console generation, and Microsoft was entering it for the first time with a new console that didn't really have a good reputation yet, and so it was hard for them to really gain market share. Honestly, the reason that Microsoft retired the original Xbox is because technology had jumped and they wanted to pump out the Xbox 360. It wasn't because, oh, the sales are abysmal and we need to move on to something else. It was because they realized they could get the jump on everyone in the next console generation with brand new technology and advancements in gaming. That's why that console kind of died out within 4 years. In this case, Nintendo's Wii U just basically has been such an abysmal sales failure, only selling 13 million units. That is pathetic in regards to mainstream gaming consoles. The fact that over the years of its existence, the Wii U has seen all third-party gaming support drop away from the console, including its biggest partner, Ubisoft, kind of said, listen, we're not going to make games anymore. We wanted to make Assassin's Creed, and we made Zombie U and all this for your console, but games don't sell on the Wii U, and we're not going to waste our money developing them for you anymore. And Nintendo has lost all of that kind of support and only been making first-party titles for the console. Therefore, even with some big surges in sales and stuff over the past few years, Nintendo really hasn't been able to turn around any kind of a major profit on the console. In fact, it was the first 2 years of the Wii U's life cycle that Nintendo, hand over fist, was losing money overall yearly and realized that something had to be done. And I think it's very important we need to bring up this fact. The only reason that Nintendo is really making a profit right now are these little things right here, Amiibos. They're not selling any kind of significant amounts of games for the Wii U. No, they're not selling any kind of profit-making numbers of Wii U's. They are selling ridiculous amounts of these little collectibles. This is a huge moneymaker for Nintendo right now, and if it weren't for this, Nintendo would probably be in dire straits and unable to even develop the new console that apparently will be announced at this year's E3 and revealed for the first time, the Nintendo NX. Speaking of the NX, it's kind of interesting because Nintendo had said, even through all the rumors that they were developing this new console, that they would continue to support the Wii U throughout the life cycle of the NX, and that they would kind of be side by side rather than the NX and then the Wii U just kind of fades away, okay? But Can we trust Nintendo? We've got this rumored news story from Nikkei this morning. Now, we haven't had any official confirmation from Nintendo yet. That's important to note. But if it's true, if you're ceasing production on a console, how much longer are you going to support it? Now, some people might even bring up the counter of, well, what about the PlayStation 2? I mean, that console was out of production for a long time, but look how long of a life cycle it even had into the life of the PlayStation 3. And that is important to note. However, understand, the PlayStation 2, number one, was the dominant console in that generation. Number two, had a huge installed user base. And number three, was considered a discount console at the end of its life cycle, which kind of became the console you would buy for the kiddies because you didn't want to buy the $500-$600 console for them. Buy them the $200 El Cheapo PS2 with a bunch of cheap games. So the PS2 was in a very different position than the Wii U is, and the question is, will Nintendo live up to their promises that they will actually continue to support it? In fact, skeptics may have a point here, because during the life cycle of the Game Boy Advance, Nintendo announced the Nintendo DS and said, oh, don't worry, we understand that the Game Boy Advance isn't very old yet, we're going to continue to support that while we could also work on the Nintendo DS. But within a year, that Game Boy Advance was an afterthought, and there were almost no games being developed for it, and no one talked about it. Everything was the DS, the DS, the DS, the DS. Sometimes, especially dependent on the market reactions, you can't continue to support. If the market wants what it's the new and the best thing, if it's a jump, especially in technology-wise, for not necessarily this much more money, they're probably going to want to see more of that. And I think that's what happened with the Game Boy Advance versus the Nintendo DS, is that people said, wow, well, it's a little portable device, it's not super expensive, it's way better than the Game Boy Advance in technology-wise, we want this, and so the Game Boy Advance ended up being retired. The question here is the same exact thing going to happen with the Wii U, even if Nintendo has the best of intentions and wants to keep making games for it? What if people are like, listen, this console, when it launched, was behind the times, and we don't want games for it anymore, just make us stuff for the Nintendo NX. And of course, that brings up another interesting point. Why did the Wii U fail as big as it did? And it's pretty obvious. Number one, no one cares about Nintendo gimmicks anymore. Nintendo always tries some silly gimmick when they put out a console. With the Wii, with motion controls, they were the first ones to actually have those as a mainstream part of gameplay in the mainstream market. And guess what? Tons of people who weren't hardcore gamers bought the Wii U just for the gimmick, and after a couple of years it died out and Nintendo stopped making money on that console. With the Wii U, it's like, who in the hell ever said they wanted a giant freaking TV in their face when they're playing a console? If this were a handheld game device, I'd say great, but the Wii U is a gaming console for the home. This doesn't make any sense. Like, what market feedback did Nintendo do that said, wow, everything we hear about when it comes to gaming in the home is that the parents complain that the kids are hogging the TV, and therefore they really should have something where the kids can continue to play console games on this while the parents use the TV for their own important stuff. No one ever said that. Seriously, like, most kids, we don't even want the kids, right? If you're a parent, you don't want the kid in the same room as you playing the game. Put them off in their own room to play on their own TV while you can watch your own stuff in your own room or in the living room or whatever. Nintendo, like, didn't do any market research, just assumed because they had a great idea with the Wii U and it made money that they were going to go ahead and be successful. In addition, the Wii U was severely underpowered when it launched compared even to its older consoles like the Xbox 360 and the PS3. The Wii U couldn't push out the graphics that those consoles were pushing out. So how the hell did Nintendo expect to compete in a console generation where we knew the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One were coming and they were going to push the boundaries of what you could do with graphical technology? What was Nintendo thinking? I hate making these kinds of vlogs because I'm a fan of Nintendo. I'm wearing a goddamn Nintendo beanie. I grew up with Nintendo. I loved the NES. I loved the Super NES. The Nintendo 64 I liked, but that was a time period when I was kind of getting more into Street Fighter, and I fell out of love with consoles. So for me, like, my entire childhood of gaming was mostly Nintendo. There's still in the back of my mind the guys that I have this nostalgic feeling about, like, wow, those games, you know, Super Mario Brothers series and the Zelda series and Star Fox and all the amazing games that I played on those consoles over the years. And then I look at today and I'm like, what has gone on with this company? I can't believe they could go from so high to so low. It's like, how do you absolutely ignore your customer base and just get such a big bloated fucking head to think that you know what your customers want without asking them? you have to think Nintendo execs live in a cave, right? I mean, honestly, like, they did absolutely nothing to listen to what anyone has said over the past decade about where they want gaming to go. They've gone in the complete opposite direction, and even though they had that flash in the pan fluke with the Wii, I think finally with the Wii U, we're seeing the results of bad management. I think it is important to close the video to just reiterate, this is a rumor. This is just news from Nikkei, this business publication in Japan. It has not been confirmed nor denied by Nintendo, and maybe they will confirm or deny it within the next few days. But the bottom line is the reason that the internet is so abuzz about this story is because it's not surprising. Everyone over the past several years has been saying Nintendo doesn't know what they're doing. The Wii U is a flop. The Wii U is a failure. And you get these Nintendo fanboys, no, it's not. You don't know what you're talking about. Nintendo's going to come back. They got tons of money. They can bleed money all they want. Oh, you're going to see, oh, look at this amiibo. Oh, spend money on amiibo. And it's like, but that doesn't do anything. That doesn't save the company. That doesn't put Nintendo back on the right track. And all I could say is this. I don't know too much about the Nintendo NX. I've heard tons of rumors about this console, all right? I hope, please, Nintendo management, I hope you've actually done market feedback research. You've listened to what the customers are telling you they want in a gaming console. I severely hope that some of the rumors I've heard about the Nintendo NX being incredibly expensive, having a handheld system built into a mainstream console, I hope that it's all bullshit. Because Nintendo, this is your last chance. You only get one chance a generation to make an impression. And for everyone who kind of this console generation jumped into gaming, they think Nintendo is a joke, or they think Nintendo is a little figurine manufacturing company. They don't see them as a major contender when it comes to gaming. And that's sad. Nintendo needs to come back in a big way. And if they come out with another gimmick that no one wants, and they try to shove it down our throats, no one's going to bite this time. You know, you can only win the benefit of the doubt a certain amount of times. And I think up to now, Nintendo's kind of given the benefit of the doubt a lot because they did have that giant period within the mid-1980s to maybe the early 2000s where they were known as this really epic, legendary game design company. If they don't turn things around with a console that makes sense for what the consumers want in 2016, I think this could be the last hurrah. That's at least my opinion. What do you think? Leave a comment in the description of the video. Let me know your take on this whole Wii U controversy situation. Do you think it actually will be retired by the end of the year and production will stop? Do you think it's all a bunch of fluff? What do you think about Nintendo as a company as a whole? Leave your thoughts and let's get some conversation going. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the vlog, and I'll see you next time for another Phil Reacts.